represent organizations I support personally, like the MAC. And so it's great to leverage some of my corporate experience and B2B experience to give you guys some insight. I focus on developing high-end websites that are really focused more on integrations and systems management, system processes. So when we sit with clients or organizations, I have a lot of nonprofits as clients, we look at the end goal, but we also look at how they're getting there now. If I could talk about your donors as a market, what's as a customer, I would talk about it like what's the, how are they coming in through your funnel? What are you doing once you capture them? What are you doing when you convert them? What are you doing when you offboard them? What are you doing for follow-up and retention, right? We'd look at all of those pieces and then see what pieces can be delivered better through the website. Where can system integrations with the website help your team and cut down administrative hours? And how can we help you increase conversions while minimizing administrative tasks and giving your team back the time they need, which is especially important with nonprofits who are often short-staffed or leveraging volunteers right? So those, what we would call billable hours, aren't billable for nonprofits, so it's even more important with you. And so that's the angle we take in web development. I mean, it's a given, sites have to look good and function and be search engine compatible, but what more can they do? They could arguably be the best employee you ever hire. More star.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'm Alisa White from TrinityPoint Wealth. I'm the marketing director there. I've been there just over a year now, actually. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of you on the nonprofit space, whether in the sponsorship or event marketing side of things, or even as clients for 401k or the endowments. It's interesting, someone asked, or I guess Tara, when I first got here, well, what's your background? Well, done a little bit of everything over the years, from working at some large agencies, working with consumer packaged goods like Hellman's Mayonnaise, Breyer's Ice Cream, right down to tiny little brands that you kind of have to hire people to sample on the street before anybody even knows who they are. And now being on the client side and having the opportunity to build partnerships locally in the community from Milford, other than 4 years in college, and really kind of seeing what the nonprofit space in Milford is currently, how it's changed over the years, and how relationships kind of continue to build and partnerships happen. So I kind of like that I can bring my marketing expertise to some of you guys and work hand in hand, and sometimes, just kind of be a resource. So if anybody has anything that they have struggles with or want to brainstorm some ideas, I'm always available. So feel free to reach out, and I'll let you go from there.
Thank you. Well, again, my name is Thomas Bepko. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sales here at Total Mortgage. I'm also the broker and owner of Yellowbrick Real Estate. We're both Milford companies. But I also am a social media marketer, and I am a co-founder of a foundation in Fairfield and part of the Milford Total Mortgage Community Foundation. It's in my day. I have my day jobs and I have my give back, which I'm very passionate about. My goal every year is to raise between about $50,000 to $100,000 a year. I've been able, myself and my team who is here, we've been able to raise money using social media effectively and digital advertising and email lists. So hopefully I can bring some value today. If you guys have questions, then I can help show you how you guys can get up and going on your nonprofits.
So let's get started with some questions. Anybody want to learn something? There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. So a lot of people here, I think, are digital natives, but some of us are not. And the nonprofit that I run is very much, social media is like a big part of what we do. We have corporate sponsors that need us to look good and, do different things. And to have a certain type of a presence. And it has to have a certain, impact or whatever. But my question is, we're paying too much for it. And my question is, what kind of resources, where would you go to learn kind of how to do these things? Like before I started working there, I didn't even know how Instagram worked at all. Like when you type in things like how does Instagram work, it doesn't, you don't really get anything. right? And I'm really, I have somebody already who's like the expert who I'm paying to tell me how Instagram works. I'm sort of hoping to try to learn some of this by myself. And I'm wondering if you guys know of resources or, ideas for somebody who wants to kind of get on that learning curve of how to use this. I know I'm never gonna be an expert, but that's my question.
My first response is gonna be YouTube.
Okay.
Because it's amazing what information you can find on YouTube as far as the go-to tutorials of, even whether it's just the basics or
Mhm.
just ideas as far as how to present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And interns are great, right? Like every kid from the time that they're 10 years old has Instagram nowadays, and they all need volunteer hours or should need volunteer hours. So if you could get, a volunteer or two, tell them what your brand looks like, what your messaging looks like, and have them show you examples. You can approve everything prior to any kind of posting, that type of thing. I think you'd get a lot out of them. You're not having to pay them, you're just signing off on their volunteer sheet.
Where, do you go to like a business school or like where would you?
So the high school kids are the ones that primarily need them, so
Okay.
I'm speaking from a mom of a 15-year-old daughter. You could go to the volunteer coordinators or go to the administration at each of the high schools in Milford, or even locally, Amity, for example, has them too, but they all have volunteer coordinators.
Okay.
So you could just call the main number and say, I'm from such and such I apologize, because you're one of the only people that I don't know in the
Yeah.
room, so.
Get in touch.
Oh, perfect, excellent. Even better, especially given the month that it is, but, and they're all, the high schools are all doing some kind of fundraising, especially this month, that you could get them to become brand ambassadors for you. Like Friday night before a football game is pink out.
Yeah, I'm
So
actually
you're-
going to that, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so perfect,
yeah.
so you get a couple of kids who need the volunteer hours and are willing to use their following, they can start, as long as you're approving everything prior to them posting it, you
Right.
let them be your brand ambassadors and share the messaging and the excitement of every foreign student wearing pink as they walk into a football game on Friday. That would be mine. But you're the social media
No,
guy, I
but
apologize, I
that
jumped
was
in without
great.
thinking about it.
YouTube University can tell you anything, right? It really can. I've learned a ton from YouTube. I've also learned a lot from my own brand or my own company's brands is on Instagram as a tool. If you follow and engage with other nonprofit organizations who are doing kind of the thing that you want to do, that is a good tool. The best thing about content is you can recreate it, right? And kind of put your own spin on it. For instance, if I'm doing an event for a gala this year, actually tomorrow we have an event, it's a fall festival event, right? We came up with this idea, we try and do 3 or 4 a year, but this idea was like, oh, well, we had somebody that was doing something similar. I'm like, no, what if we did it and we did it this way, right? We put our own spin on it and then we added our own like kind of style to it and then create our own event. And that kind of works well. It's kind of just taking information on the YouTube, taking information from other Instagram influencers or nonprofits who are using that stuff and kind of just do what they're doing. In regards to paying for a content manager or a content creator, I have a million questions on that. Maybe if you want, we can schedule later and you can contact me and I'd love to help you and just break it down. Because depending on what your goal is with Instagram and social media, we can kind of back that out and tell you how much you should be spending. Like to have somebody, going to the schools and stuff. I mean, my 10-year-old edits on YouTube Shorts now. So he edits for his mom, right? He does all this stuff, but that is a good way. The younger generation kids in the 6th grade, 6th to 8th grade are always looking for things to do, but they are masters in this field. I can't keep up with it. Right?
It really is.
So that is another great way, and kind of just follow and even ask some of the nonprofits that are on Instagram for ideas from them. You just send them a direct message. Everything is on Instagram and Facebook is made in the direct messaging feature. So I would use that and just ask people. If somebody asked me how I did, I would definitely. The thing about Instagram and social media is people want to provide value for free. That's why we do it, right? So the more value we can give to a follower or a current client or a future partner, that is why we do it, right? It's why one of the reasons why I do, why I give back, why I give valuable information for free on Instagram. And I don't know, did you want to add in? I could talk for a while about this, but I do have questions, so.
Okay.
I had some questions too, just about how do you know it's paying too much versus like the value, you know, the ROI on it versus an intrinsic value and unmeasurable values that go with it versus does it just blow up your budget and it hurts, right? Because I'm a business
Yeah, I
owner,
mean, not
right?
to really go into the.
Yeah, but I mean,
nuts and
sometimes
bolts of
it just,
Yeah.
you know, is an expense.
Yeah.
I would lean into Alisa and her framing, you know, strategy versus execution. You can get anybody to press some buttons, but think of yourself as developing the strategy, and then you're paying somebody or using a volunteer to execute it for you, right? Because it's an innate ability at this point, you know, given like a digital native, it's an innate ability. Bridgeport College has a really good internship program in the arts, and they do have courses and certificates just in social media, so you can get somebody with a little more, you know, weight behind their skill set to guide you a little bit in that strategy, because they're going to school for it and it's still an internship type thing. Khan Academy Online and Wyzen Academy Online. If you find yourself locked into really needing some like one-on-one guidance or on-demand training that's really specific and focused for a piece of social media or a goal with social media, they're really great resources. You can Wyzen, you hire a coach, a tutor, right, for an hour, 10 hours, whatever you want. And Khan, I think it's more self-guided learning, KHAN, Khan Academy, and then Wyzen.
Thank you.
I did leave the back 2 pages on this blank because I figured people would have notes, so I saw you writing really small. If you want to use the whole back 2 pages, there's plenty of room. There you go.
Okay, good, thank you.
And Tara's not gonna like that, I'm gonna say this, but Canva is a great source for creative as far as being able to develop something. They already have formatted Instagram, Facebook, you know, as far as the dimensions and things go, and they have a nonprofit for, I think it's $120 annually.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
I know
Thank
Canva's
you.
great.
Yeah.
Good,
That's
good
down
suggestion.
and dirty, get it
Yeah.
out, produce.
One more tool, just spitballing
yeah.
here, but we use, you know, like if you can't get a volunteer, you could pay for virtual assistants who are probably a quarter of the price that are specialized in social media, and they have the skill set, and you can kind of interview them and pick on what you wanna do and what you wanna have them for. You could probably find a social media creator, virtual assistant who has experience in the nonprofit space, who can create and manage content.
On Fiverr, get it?
Yeah.
Fiverr, yes, there's many other, but Fiverr is there's a great tool. There's also, you know, I use ones out of South America. There's a Keller Williams, a real estate brokerage, started a virtual assistant. The name will come to me, but I'll send it in an email after. They're a little bit more expensive, but you can actually interview about 5 virtual assistants virtually and go through their resumes and show what they've done for nonprofits. It's been effective, and it's probably about between $1,200 to $1,600 a month. I don't know if that's in the budget, but that's been, instead of hiring 40 or 50,000, right, a content creator, these days you can hire it for, you know, $1,400 a month and have them full time.
And if you
Especially-
really wanna go bare bones, you can lean into like Cloud Campaign or Deliberate as your social media manager. And so what it is you link all your social media accounts to it, whether it's 2, whether it's 40, I think Deliberate's like $15 a month. You can link personal accounts and business accounts to it. And then the content you create it and post it there, and it shoots it out on time schedules. And most of those platforms will also do some of the heavy thinking for you and volunteer. Generally speaking, these are good times of days to post, and after a while, like Meta, they'll volunteer like based on your audience. They're visiting your page here, so it's probably best to drop your post because of your audience in LinkedIn this time or Facebook that time. So Cloud Campaign and Deliberate is finicky, low budget, not tons of bells and whistles, but it's also not a lot of room for mistakes. Right?
The name of the company is Cyberbackers, if you wanna write that down, Cyberbackers, sorry, it did come to me.
Jen, you had a question? I saw you raise your hand.
So good, Simon, I did.
Yeah.
I actually have 2 questions, and I just thank you all for being here, and it's so nice to see kind of like the private sector dig so deep and so personally into like philanthropy and the work that you do, so I just really appreciate that. My 2 questions are around websites. So, well, one question around websites. So, our website needs to speak to a few different audiences. It needs to speak to donors, it needs to speak to community partners, and it needs to speak to folks that need help right now. And just any guidance on what are some of those like guardrails or structural pieces that we should be thinking around our website design, without, because you know, we've done two things. We've stripped it away with lots of information, and then obviously calls into the office increase, which we certainly love those calls and connecting with folks, but we also, I think what you said, you know, have your website be your best employee, like that really resonates with me, because if we can field people to the best referrals kind of without calling in, we've saved them time and we've saved ourselves time. So I guess just any thoughts around kind of what we should be thinking of when you have a website that really needs to meet so many different needs and tell like the bigger story of who you are as an organization.
Yeah, because a lot of nonprofits have like the three audiences, right? They have the mission they're delivering on, right? They have the donors and sponsors. They're trying to track volunteers, right? So there's the participation angle. And it can be hard to balance it. I hear, you know, there's a lot of different feelings in the industry, and maybe you guys have different insight on this. I don't think there can be such a thing as too much content on a website. I do think there can be bad content on a website, or content that's not presented appropriately to the market. So you have content there, but the people of the mission, the people you're delivering on mission to, think it's for them when it's really for donors, right? And so really making clear, organizing, like the structural organization of your site is really, really important. Most of the nonprofits I work with, the main meat of the website, first and foremost, is delivering on mission, right? So who's the end user, the audience? It's delivering on that mission. Because the volunteers and the donors, they want to see that you're delivering on that mission, right? The donors and the volunteers are not going to get lost in too much information that's you delivering on mission, but you know, the people who need help right now, they will get lost in if you're creating a funnel first and foremost to attract donors. They'll get lost in it, but your donors and your volunteers and whatnot are never going to get lost in that. So I would always put that first and foremost, and then donors, volunteers that get involved can always be housed in one section, one tab, drop downs. You know, your main call to actions on the top level of the website, again, always get help now, whatever that is, right? And if you're speaking properly, you have your marketing campaign segmented properly, where you have an active campaign going at donors, you're gonna lead them to the donor pages, right? You just wanna make sure that your off-page marketing isn't inadvertently driving those people who need help now to the content that's not for them. So it's content management and site organization, really, that will do it best.
Yeah. Similar question, when it comes to newsletters, I've heard one school of thought say, if you're trying to reach those different constituencies, you need 3 separate newsletters. Do you feel like they can be combined, or it's a little difficult to do, I think?
You know, if you're talking about an end user, and it's probably definitely more in your vein, sometimes the information need overlaps. It does, but sometimes it doesn't. Like the side of the market that needs help now really doesn't need the report, your annual report, right? And so, are you properly tagging those? Are you using proper tags when those people come through your funnel? Are they being tagged as volunteers? Are they being tagged as internal? Are they being tagged as, you know, whatever your clients, customer, however you delineate between those, and so that you can segment properly.
So not 3 separate newsletters?
Do you mind if I speak to that a little bit? Just because I do our internal newsletters at Total Mortgage, I work at Total Mortgage, and this comes up all the time for us of like, well, which employees should be getting which messaging, and I've found that you can repeat messages to similar groups, but then there's certain groups where you just delete content. So that's where I found it's the most efficient way to get messaging out, where, you know, something I send to the sales team, I might resend that same messaging to the entire company, and they get it twice, and, you know, that's okay. I found that, you know, as long as you're intentional about it, you can't really over-communicate certain things, but, to your point, there are certain messages that go to
Yeah.
the sales team that you don't necessarily want going to your entire group, so,
And
that's what I found to be
frequency.
most effective, so they're not
Being tagged.
duplicating or doing too much work or creating all these different things. You kind of have the same templates and you can just delete stuff that's not relevant.
Well, and I think the tagging, right?
Tagging.
And I
Keeping it
don't-
organized and very intentional. I've heard some great, being intentional with your marketing, right, per your list, whether it's the sales team or it's operations team or it's the volunteer team. Being more intentional and kind of focusing on that, and yeah, taking content out that wouldn't apply to the volunteers rather than the sales team. And one more thing I just wanted to add on the website stuff, if you're using, I like video on the website.
I was gonna ask
Yeah.
about video too.
I like video
You've
and
got great content.
and a VSL, which is a video sales letter, which is kind of a video newsletter. That is a new, kind of a new way to market and to start building your funnel that we use. So VSL and video on website, being intentional, creating lists and tagging correctly, and very like the organized stuff that I got anxiety thinking about right now. I'm thinking about my email list because I went through it yesterday, and you know, when we do, I don't want to rant here, but when I like to do a lot of other micro events. I brand on social media, then we do micro events with our vendors and other referral partners and stuff, and that'll create a bigger community and a bigger network, right, of us. So we're able to go through my email list once a week, and I'm always cleaning it up, and I'm thinking about 7 lists and the tags. I'm like, I didn't tag the agents properly for the event tomorrow, so I'm just going through. You have to get kind of uncomfortable if you're organizing yourself and really dig down into the fine like details of it and make sure you're marketing correctly and get your list very organized. That is going to get your ROI or your return or your lead capture very more targeted. It's gonna make it more targeted, and it's gonna create more engagement
Right.
for you
Are you
guys.
using Constant Contact?
Networks are good.
Okay.
I use Constant Contact. Use Constant.
I just
Constant
actually,
Contact?
Active Campaign.
Okay. We use Constant Contact.
I just got rid of
Yeah,
Constant Contact.
I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
we-
please.
I work a little with the newsletter as well, so, what I think, and I'm kind of processing everything that everybody here said, is when you make a newsletter, make that as general as you can, that goes to everybody, so you've got your events on it, you've got your mission on it, you've got, thank yous and, sponsors and things like that on that, and anything that is more specific than that should be sent directly to the people who that works for. Your newsletter shouldn't have, as you said, the annual reports and things like that, but a more general, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, that anybody can read. And then anything that has to get more specific than that to your donors, we need your money. I mean, you could put a donation on the bottom, that's, everybody's gonna expect that, but nothing specific to particular donations and things like that in the overall newsletter. So that's just how I would look at it, okay?
If I could
So-
volley a consideration about tagging, I work with one nonprofit and they take donations up to like $70,000, $80,000, and they have different tiers, but they process it all through their website, which is great. So the tagging convention we have set up, not only automatically tags them as like a donor or whatnot, but it tags the level at which they donate and the frequency, so that when we run our donation campaigns, we're not doing the $5 drive, $5 change to people that give us 10, 20, 30,000 donations. And we're also not doing the $1,000 silver package for the holidays at the people who are on the $5 a month program, right? And so the tagging can really be thought of more than just the market or how they came in, but what your future goals will be with them. What would I'd love to do with this list, right? The if this, then that, or does A equal B and B equal C? And if not, right? So adding tags that are maybe a future consideration so that you can dive in and find those people, even if that tag changes or the concept changes down the road. A lot of future planning.
What is,
I've got
in your
somebody
opinion?
lost.
Gonna run right out and do it. In your opinion, so we use GiveCloud as like a portal to accept donations. What are other things that you have used, that you guys have used in addition to GiveCloud that you think work well? I know Donor Perfect you can push part of that into, but are there other things that you've worked with that that work well?
You know, my clients bring all sorts of tech to the table, and they have there's always something that, you know, they're tied into this platform because they started off with it, right?
Right, yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
wanted this piece of the CMS and they ended up using these pieces, so now it makes sense. But I mean, I have clients that just register with Stripe or PayPal or whatever as nonprofit, get the discounted rate, and just process that way, because they're paying out and paying in through those platforms, and so it makes management for them and whatever variables they have work. It can also become an integrations issue where, again, they start with one CMS or CRM, and it's not compatible with something that's industry or niche specific. So we do it using API, it's technical. But this platform is great, it's the best, lots of nonprofits use it. CT NOFA is using one, Northeast Organic Farmers Association, and they're using a niche specific one, but it has all sorts of issues because the more common platforms don't integrate with it because they haven't created APIs for this niche.
Can you, what's an API? Sorry.
It's just a snippet of code that allows one program to talk to another.
Oh, I see.
And so there's so much software out there, not everybody's writing, you know, creating these programs to integrate with everything, it'd be almost impossible, right? So they go for the big fish first to integrate with the QuickBooks or the Stripe or the PayPal, and they don't hit these much smaller, even though they're amazing for what you do. You're a very small audience, and so these other platforms aren't, you know, prepping to be able to fit to plug and play with your software. Whatever you guys use for nonprofits, for donation collections and payments.
Well, it's not the best, but we've been using Eventbrite because we email market. Yeah, Eventbrite does take a
Oh,
fee.
right,
But if you're
right, yeah.
503C, it's less, but they still take a lot. It's effective, it's email. Honestly, telling myself is probably the lazy way to do it, but it's effective, it's right away, it goes right into, where does it go to PayPal? We get it into the bank account or PayPal?
Yeah, we get it into PayPal.
We
So
get it
we're
into
still
PayPal.
waiting to get it approved
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, there are, you know, and it's, unfortunately, there are a lot of hidden fees.
Yeah.
So
You
as
gotta
you're
be
kind of
careful.
going through the transitions, and depending on how your website, what you're using, like if, for example, Wix is constantly onboarding new integrations, so there's some new event partnerships within Wix that you can actually use that does have a donor option. Because I don't use it in my day-to-day, I'm not overly familiar with them, but there's always new changing integrations that are happening, so it's hard to say what's the best one, and I don't know, you're using PayPal, right?
We use PayPal as our donation, like that's where we physically
Yeah.
collect
Yeah.
the money from, but our website team, they just built us a page. We had to pay like $300 on Space Host or whatever, and they implemented a whole event page right directly into our website. So now I can collect all of my race registrations, all of my, what am I doing right now? We're selling tickets, raffle
Pumpkins.
tickets,
Yeah.
we're selling wristbands for our upcoming Pumpkins on the Playground, and we have, each page has its own platform.
Is it WordPress?
It's through Space Host. I don't know if they're using
What was
WordPress.
the other one that we looked at that was a little bit cheaper for events? I mean, PayPal we do use as well, like, but
Yeah,
make sure you
we
read your
do.
fine print and before you do
Yeah.
events and stuff, make sure you
Yeah,
understand the fees.
I've gotten caught up in years past with working with boards that didn't read the fine print, and you end up losing more than you.
Yeah, most of the nonprofits
For-
I work with just skip
Yeah.
the built-in niche market ones, cause if Eventbrite is using PayPal anyway,
Yeah.
why bother?
Why, exactly.
Just use PayPal, you know, if what you're using, it might actually be backed by Stripe or Square, whatever. Why go through them if you don't need all their other stuff, if you're only using them for payment process? Why pay $300 to a developer, work WooCommerce into your site, which is just a plugin for selling stuff,
Yeah, right.
and link it to
WordPress, yeah.
your Stripe, so you have a one-time fee for development, and then you're just paying the Stripe fees you'd be paying anyway.
I'm gonna give a shameless plug for one of our members. For our golf tournament, we use Get Beyond.
He's
and
amazing.
He's a great guy, and they pretty much build at least the portal to get in to buy tickets and put in
Yeah.
donations and things like that. So I would recommend giving him a call. He's
I'll
a
definitely
Good.
call
brilliant
that.
guy. so-
Eventbrite, I would rather give more money towards
Yeah,
the cause.
yeah, and his.
$2 a time.
The company he works for does give, I think it's 51% of their profits to an organization to help children of incarcerated people. So, it's a pretty good organization, so again, shameless
That can
plug.
always be like a brand ad for you too, like, I mean, as a little kid, I remember my father very specifically telling me, Union family here, that you vote with your wallet, right? And like, as my earliest memories of like things dad says, is you vote with your wallet, so when you wanna be on brand, you have to think about those tertiary platforms that you're using, like GoDaddy was in heat a couple years ago for all sorts of things they shouldn't be doing, shouldn't be saying, shouldn't be involved with. And it's like, if you're, you know, a activist focused nonprofit, maybe you don't wanna be using GoDaddy because they have heat in the press for things that go against your mission. Are you paying attention to, you know, who really owns the company? People love Burt's Bees, right? Owned by Clorox, right? So if you're like super into homeopathic natural stuff and you think you love Burt's Bees, you're really paying Clorox, right? And so thinking about that when you're picking a developer, that they're on mission for you, that becomes part of your brand.
Point.
You're taking that on. And what an amazing thing to work with a company that gives back like that.
Well,
Okay.
beyond, you said?
Yep,
We can actually
right on
put
our
a,
website.
we'll put a kind of a detail together, right, because we're recording this.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So we can,
Yep.
I'll try to capture all the platform nods.
yeah. But Todd is great to work with.
Good.
I've called him in the middle of a golf tournament,
Yeah.
actually, and been like, hey, by the way, this stripe just stopped working, what do I do?
Yeah.
Was he on the ninth hole swinging?
No, he was actually working,
Yeah, no,
but he did talk me through it.
Yeah, he works hard just to make sure that everything goes right, so. Anybody else? Oh, you guys are that smart, you don't have anything?
I have a couple
Okay,
questions.
sure.
Let's hear it.
So you were talking about the content on the website, the videos, and something I run up against, cause I really want authentic photos and video for our website, but, due to the anonymity of our clients, it's very difficult to capture that. So, you know, as we were, redoing our website, I definitely wanted more authentic photos of Bridges, either staff or our, you know, even if it's our infrastructure, if I can't get our client photos. But do you have any workarounds or suggestions when you can't necessarily capture the amazing work that's happening because of anonymity reasons?
I had an idea, this goes back years ago with a nonprofit that we work with out of New Haven, and she's in the same boat that you are. Storyboard, right, animation, you don't have to have the physical picture of the person, you just have to be able to tell the story, and giving a likelihood image of what they could look like without actually being able to identify the person brings enough of the story to life. Jen, unfortunately, who left, she has a ton of video content on her website, and it's like every time I see something, I'm in tears and like pulling out my wallet. So finding a way to do the same thing without actually showing the full picture of someone. And Canva actually has some resources for that too. There's a lot of really great AI that is out there that's free, that you can take a description of what someone looks like and they'll build you an image of that person, but it's not actually the image of the person. So using maybe a technique similar to that, because it is hard, right? Like text is text, and it's, unless it's really flashing in your face, you want it to be eye-catching and compelling and telling the story of that person. So
It's so hard to make a
it's so
connection,
hard.
you can't capture the eyes of the people you're serving, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we can capture the backs of someone in the room.
Right.
Or in a recovery session,
Yeah.
or, you know.
Yeah, Megan's got kids, so like it's, all she has to do is post pictures of kids and people
Right.
pull their wallets out, but, yeah, no, it's tough.
But Megan's got kids, so you don't always have the ability to post
So
pictures.
we have releases.
Yeah, they all have
And I was
releases.
at a ribbon cutting at St. Mary's, and we had to have a conversation about that yesterday, so.
An idea too is to think about the end goal of the mission, like if the mission has been successfully delivered on for a person, what does it look like then, right? For them, and is it recovery, now they have good family relationships, good friend relationships, they're working in a job that has a future and opportunity for growth. You can show, you know, the ideal situation, the goal, like what will happen when the mission is fulfilled on a specific person. Leaning into that, I do like Canva's AI images, I would be careful though. It likes to have 3 eyes on people and 6 fingers.
Oh, boy.
It can be really tricky to navigate. And so for a lot of the nonprofits I work with, and even the private sector, especially health sphere professionals, right, they're not showing their clients, but we're leaning into the goal of, or the tone. I work with a lot of like therapists, psychologists, and so it's you know, presenting the tone they want people to experience when they're working with them. So what is that? You know, if they're working with kids, it's a more friendly, flat graphic kind of presentation. If they're working with, you know, life after divorce, right? It's a different type of presentation. And so you can do a lot with color schemes, flat graphics, goal, focus, shadows. You also want to really take into consideration when you're working with photos. They're not always the best thing, because what you have is accessibility issues. And as nonprofits, and for a lot of clients I have in the health sphere area, where now so many of them are delivering across state lines that have more focus on ADA policy and whatnot. When you have a heavy photography and text over that, you create accessibility issues for yourself. And so the photography isn't always the best way to go. You can give yourself issues that way. If you're on WordPress, you can navigate some of that by adding free plugin controls from ADA, like Pojo is one. If you're on WordPress, it's free, it's pretty good. There are services that will audit your site and make recommendations for it. The challenge with those is they're everywhere from $600 a year to $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
The other end is some places like New York State, they have a whole like legal community that's been built up around suing based on ADA compliances, but what they look for is specifically websites who are using those big high-ticket services, because they know there's flaws in them. The ADA policies are written so poorly that it's almost impossible. All you can have is best practices. You can't be fully in compliant. It's just not possible. So in New York, there's this whole legal community that knows the exact holes for the exact software, and it's going after companies with them. So I don't even recommend using like Accessibility or
That's what we use.
use Accessibility. You're not in New York.
You know what
No,
though,
we're not.
and honestly, really, they're going after people that have money, they're not going after a
Yeah.
small local
Yeah.
nonprofit, really in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
And I did audit like so many of the different services before we pulled the trigger on one, and they are really expensive. And
really
unfortunately, cause they know they have you over a barrel.
They do.
The small, you're like, oh, just to get this and this and this, and next thing you know, like, just to be compliant, you're looking at significant costs, so,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be overly concerned being a nonprofit for
No,
that.
no.
It is a point, but it's
Yeah.
not.
No, but if you throw in a plugin like Pojo, which is free, you then give control to the user to adjust for the issues you might cause with, like, overcompensating on imagery with images that just cause issues that way.
We probably need to
I
work
had
this
another
through.
question, but I don't want to
Go
be
ahead.
greedy with your
No.
time. So what, but thinking about branding and image, something that I come up against, but our agency is so large, we have over 20 different programs and services. So when I'm thinking about the different types of drums that I want to beat, or the stories I need to tell, they are far-reaching and varied. I mean, we serve the entire lifespan, from children who are getting mental health services, to adults in recovery, to teens, to senior outreach services. I mean, and I'm been with Bridges for like a year and a half, so I've been assessing as I've been here, and a lot of people don't even know the programs that are happening in the community, because they've either been sort of branded by the program name versus Bridges. So I'm trying to find a way to kind of bring that in, but also find the right stories to tell, because we can't tell 20 stories for every program every week. And so, sorry, this wasn't a well-articulated question. It's more of how, when you're producing so many different types of services for the community, do you find the right messaging so that people understand what you have? Or we worked on our website so that we have a, but with social media and things, how do you identify which are the right stories to tell in order to let people know and work on that image and brand? Did I stump you because
No, I'm just, I'm trying to take a bigger picture as far as how I would even conquer some of that. You probably have some really good ideas.
For me, it's what we post is what's the most valuable, how I can offer the most value, whatever I'm trying to give, right? So if you have 20 different programs, right, maybe niching down and understanding the audience in between of each of those 20 programs, and kind of what I talked about before, like tagging your email list and making sure they're getting the right message. As branding as a whole, I don't know much about the brand, but maybe that brand should kind of tie in all the 20 programs a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what I would work on. If I had to like look at my branding and look at if they weren't matching, I'd try and do everything I could to make them come together and be in unison. And have to the color schemes and be more inviting on the page, or the video is different. There's many ways you could do it, but it seems like it seems like you guys are doing well. And for me, it's kind of fun to redo that stuff, and like it's getting uncomfortable in those situations. At the moment I can't stand it, but I'm like just like yesterday when I went through my email list and I redid all the tags and I had the names. Like that was a lot of growth for my business. That was very good for our event coming up, for our charities, for our business, for my brand. And just getting in those details and staying organized and understanding your message to everyone you're trying to do it, and creating as much valuable information as possible to get the people to engage or donate or volunteer. I feel that's what I would do.
Right.
I don't know if that's a rant, but.
No, that was good, actually, because you just made me kind of skip to a couple thoughts, because I've been in Milford my whole life and I've had no idea the 20 services, right? Like, I could probably name 3, maybe. So looking at it from like a parent picture, family tree kind of thing, and then maybe highlighting at different points because of awareness. So like this month, the cybersecurity awareness. So like all of my blogs, all of my posts, everything that's happening right now is cybersecurity. So maybe it's picking a week or 2 and highlighting that service, and everything you do is focused on that service. And then moving on to depending on what it is. And if one event, like the bike event maybe could have highlighted one of the services, or so that everything, as you're promoting it, you're also talking about what that service brings, or how the bike event supported that service, and tying it back to the community and their involvement, and making the awareness happen a little bit more.
And I think it's partially phrasing. I mean, from a visual standpoint, you can just tag by bridges, right?
Yeah.
This big under every logo, and then it's kind of there. If you had, and I'm not saying you do, but I've seen it, 20 different websites for each of the, right? I've seen that, right? You're reeling them in. A down and dirty thing I've done is header and footer change, match them all at the end, right? And then it's, close enough, right? Also the framing of stuff, if you're trying to bring, consciousness to the fact that they're all part of Bridges, Bridges is so proud of our program, blah, right? And working that in. You can create the tree map for call to action. So if you have 20 programs, make a 12-month, what's the main call to action this month for here, 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 here? And make sure you're not telling stories just to tell stories, just to have content. I see a lot of energy wasted in having content for content's sake without like a goal, right? A goal in mind for it. Like, what do you plan to do? Are you trying to convert for donations? So the call to action is donation. What stories are we going to tell that are going to lead to donations? Do 4 of our programs need donations? Is that the call this month because events are light or whatever? How can those tie in together? And should it be hosted by the program or by Bridges? Is Bridges saying donations this month will support ABC program, right? And then you got 3 of them just kind of done. Now you've got 17 left. Where can you marry them together and bulk them so that people in mind's eyes, they see, oh, these programs are related?
Well, and see, sometimes the programs aren't related, and so that's where I'm finding, like, when one program had been created, it was maybe trying to stay away from one of our other programs and not be siloed or have some I have to use the word stigma, but have stigma connected to it. And so finding that battle of bringing them in, but acknowledging that maybe some of the clients who are being served in one way wouldn't necessarily associate themselves with a client who's being served in another way.
I think that goes again to that same sort of concept with the newsletter where there's a general message that serves everyone and then the pieces you're pulling out that, so they don't get in front of the wrong audience.
We gotta understand our audience better.
Yeah, I mean, it is all.
Clorox owning Burt's Bees,
Right,
right?
right,
And
exactly.
sometimes you gotta
Yeah.
be Clorox and just not admit, or be Burt's Bees and not
Right.
admit to the fact that Clorox owns
Yeah.
you, right? So if you have things that are opposing to each other, make sure that you don't put them on the same email and keep those separate and tag them separately.
Pay no attention to the
But-
bleach in the corner.
But they
Right,
are all,
yeah,
but
exactly.
everything is related under that Bridges umbrella, so that's, you know, it's kind of like again, going back to television ads and things with the S.E. Johnson, it's an S.E. Johnson company. So at the end of all of your, reach outs, make sure that the bridge, like Tara was saying, that the footer and the header has Bridges on there.
Yeah.
So,
And let your employees and your board members maybe help tell that message a little bit more too, because, yeah, although you can't use the patients and the people that come in to tell the message, you can have the providers obviously not give out any information, but let them kind of be as a focus. So if you have 20 board members and you assign each one of them, let them be the one that help promote within the social media or tell the story a little bit, or, you know, positions or.
Even perhaps their story, I mean, we all end up working with nonprofits in one way or the other because somehow our lives correlate with them, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do work with
Like,
the
how did you
Umbrella
get
Center.
involved? Why are you
Yeah,
passionate
why-
about that?
why
And
does
then
it
that
matter?
brings up
Sometimes
the.
they're
Those are
willing
the
to be
stories I can
candid.
use.
Yeah, right. Ask Bri, he'll do it for you.
Did you have a
Thank you
question?
all.
I do, it's kind of tying into everything that we're talking about. So I too am working with a population that is anonymous, and we do everything to protect their anonymity. It's not even a question in our minds. So we also know that the power of our mission is through the stories that they share with us. So I'm hearing you talk about, you know, AI images and things like that to help bring a story to life besides just words, which makes perfect sense. But then how do you make it clear, which in my mind, I think I have to, that this is not the person that's whose story it is? Because otherwise I feel like we're stepping all over our anonymity, even though we know that it's a canned picture. Does that make sense?
So I think when I was talking about it, I was really thinking like it would be a sketch artist. It wouldn't even be any relevant of the person. So I'm not talking about like a stock photography or them generating a true image, just more, and in your case, so, Sue is Purple Pantry. So they're all around town, depending, I guess, on the location, right? Pastas and things that people really need on a regular basis. So you using an image of your Purple Pantry and what gets put in there and the cost of what gets put in there is so powerful. When we spoke, you know, actually JR was the one that kind of brought it up, and I had no idea the association, the amount of people that are using it, why they're using it, and that's a valuable story in itself. So just that Purple Pantry stocked with what's associated with it, and then you could use shadows or silhouettes. You wouldn't even necessarily need to use any kind of imaging, just that here's a silhouette of a child who is 12 years old and would not have had dinner that night if it weren't for what comes out of the purple. That just, to me, I think would be really powerful.
Okay, so far what we've been doing is we've been creating reels, which I'm too old to understand reels, but I have someone who does, so it's okay. And she's a volunteer, so that's even better. We have a volunteer standing and saying, my name is, I'm a volunteer. I wanna share this story with you, so completely separating themselves. I mean, the story is real, the person who's telling the story is real, but they're not the same person. And that felt like we were doing it with integrity. Okay, that's silhouettes and stuff. Okay, thank you.
everybody okay? And,
I had one thing I just wanted to mention from the last meeting, and Jen unfortunately is not here. Jen Fournier had I have a small board, and they're constantly talking about buying mailing lists. And I walked out with Jen, and I said, I know what you're up against with your 6 board members, and they're all 70 plus years old. That may have changed since this conversation happened. But buying the same mailing lists and sending mailings to the same people over and over again isn't gonna change the end result. It's just gonna cost you a lot of money. And there's ways to go about mailers, but then there's also ways to go about being really strategic with digital placements, whether it be through social or through programmatic, and I threw some points in the back of this on the programmatic space, because everybody, I'm sure, is using some kind of rewards card, a Stop and Shop, Target, whatever, or they're using Rakuten, so all of their purchase history is available. And then on top of that, we have access to credit card information, so we know how much people are making and what they're purchasing on their credit cards. So targeting people based on where they live and what they contribute to, and making it really, really targeted, right down to a geographical area, and targeting them through all sorts of, whether it's, again, social media or digital media, is really beneficial. It's not as costly as you would think it would be. It's just working with the right person that can actually get that done, and making sure that your creative really tells the story of what you're trying to accomplish. But I just wanted to bring that up just because Jen had mentioned it. Now I'm gonna have to email her about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Bepko, you had anything?
No, I'm all set. I appreciate the opportunity to help, and I'll pass on my cards too after. If you guys have any information, please reach out anytime. Instagram's the fastest way to get in touch with me too. It's ironic is that Instagram, that, like I said, messaging. If you want an answer, just go to direct message. If you have if you have an account or a foundation or a nonprofit that you really like and that you're following, just reach out to them directly on Messenger. Ask them the question.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Exact opposite for me.
I know it's not easy, but again, like
That's like this.
you know,
I don't even know if I have
uncomfortable.
one.
The deal they say, there's a saying, the deals are made in the DMs.
Yeah.
It's kind of how the Instagram lives.
Right. And then the other thing that I had been talking internally, like in the office, as far as people that are on boards and the amount of work that goes into it, is thanking your board regularly, right? For those that actually step up, making sure that they are feeling appreciated because they put a lot of work into it, as well as the sponsors. And it's nice to like hear from someone who did an event, you know, whether you sponsored or whether you were on site, with some pictures, because they might want to reposition some of that and use it for their social content. Like, hey, we just sponsored the Boys and Girls Club Gala, and here was this great picture that we took with the whole team and whatever, and push that out because they're proud of what they did. So it's just something to keep in mind, that people like to feel appreciated, and it's easy to do.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll probably do this again, October, January. And we'll either do it here, or we'll have it back in my office, or we'll see what happens. So, but thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Todd, for having us. And lunch, it was fantastic, appreciate it.
Thank Jenny.
And Jen, yeah.
Yes, thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jenny.
You guys have a great day.
It's nice being here.
Thank you.